Syracuse visits South Florida. South Florida, 3.5-point favorite. This is Chuck Edel's best bet. Chuck, tell us who you like and why.
You know, Syracuse comes into this game off a nice win against UConn, but they're 3-4 on the year. But when you look at some of their losses, they could easily have a better record. A couple of weeks ago against Rutgers beat them in that game 23-15. Syracuse turned the ball over against a good defense. Syracuse outgained them 418 to 237, completely dominated against a good Rutgers team. We saw them in the first game of the year dominate Northwestern. Again, turnovers did cost them a little bit. Even USC, they outgained USC by 10 yards in that game. Minnesota, a little bit of a flat spot. Still outgained Minnesota. All four of their losses outgained. Right now, this is an offense that Nassib throwing the ball, the speed. I mean, I'm really impressed with the speed offensively and defensively. Going up against what I think is coming into the season, South Florida was maybe one of the teams to win there in the Big East, but B.J. Daniels, a quarterback, very disappointing. They've lost 5 straight games here, and I think Syracuse just a much better team here. I couldn't pass up the number. It has come down a little bit.
VR?
Yeah, so the wise guys jumped on the dog right away, and usually I'd be a little hesitant because of the fact a team looked so good in front of a national stage.
I agree. That's what I was saying.
With Syracuse blowing out Connecticut last week on ESPN. But I don't think anyone gave them a lot of credit for that game because it was UConn. It's not like they beat Louisville or Cincinnati. So I don't think you're getting them at a premium in this spot. And if you look at South Florida, this is the worst defense in the Big East by far. And for the trend people, the guys that love to bet trends, they're going to love your side. South Florida, 1-10 ATS last 11 is a favorite. 4-12 ATS last 16 overall. And when you look at how they've done against the Big East, I think they've lost 11 out of the last 12 games. This is just not as good of a football team as people make it out to be. Once conference season starts, like you said, they just don't get it done.
They won the first 2 games of the season. The second game was a miracle victory over Nevada. Yeah. They won 32-31. I really thought they were on their way. I thought that they were the best team in the Big East. I really did. Since then, they have not won another game. And you talked about their defense. Their defense just seems to be getting progressively worse. One number sticks out to me: the pass efficiency against them, 136.8. I mean, that's terrible when you consider that they played Florida State. And other than that, they haven't really played like the greatest quarterbacks in football. Louisville, they did okay. Temple, put up quite a few points on them.
Temple put up
Ball
38
State,
on them,
I think 37. Ball State put up 31. Rutgers 23, but they're kind of a defensive team. So they have not done well defensively at all. And I think that this is a team seems to certainly be going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, and Syracuse, you look at, last week, that game against Connecticut. Connecticut, we know, bad offense.
Right.
But the defense has held them in games. They've had some wins. They put up over 500 yards in that game against Connecticut. Almost put up 500 yards against Rutgers defense at I think it's 13th in the country.
Even with the public the wise guys on your side, I think the public's going to come into South Florida at home at this low of a number. I think so.
Yeah, I mean, they did cover against Louisville last week as a dog, and they got bet. So I think there may be guys that remember that and come back on them again. I still think the perception, nobody's perceived just how bad this team is yet. But
or giving Syracuse any credit.
Yeah, exactly. I think Syracuse still a little bit under the radar because they got a losing record, 3-4. You were right on the head though, because that. Okay. I mean, I think we would have got a little more value if they didn't do that on national TV.
I agree.
But we'll still take it.
But we've talked about it. Let's go ahead and make it official.
I'm going to take Syracuse, my best bet this week, plus the 3.5. This is an offense that's dominated some very good defenses, dominated Connecticut, double up the yardage on Rutgers, just had some turnover problems. If it wasn't for that, this team could easily be 6-1. I like Syracuse to win the game straight up.
It's funny, when it opened 6 and went to 3, I was looking, is there an injury I'm not seeing? That's a big move.
I think they just made a bad line. Very rarely will I say they just made a bad line.
That's like saying on a neutral field, South Florida would almost be a 10-point favorite. Yeah. I don't see it.
No, because South Florida's at home, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Southern Cal was their one legit loss, really. And I'll tell you what, they hung in there pretty good.
They
in that
did.
game.
It was at halftime. It was crazy
42-29
score. They outgained USC.
I think that was a tip-off that maybe USC wasn't as good as we thought, too. Okay. Coming up next, VR is going to give us his pick on Atlanta and Philadelphia. strong convictions from my man VR. You can watch all our videos at pregame.tv.